Now, here is your host, Dan Kuschell.
Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you transformation, inspiration, and leadership. Thanks for making us part of your day. We've got a special show that I've been looking forward to for weeks. We've got the super coach. His name is Michael Burt. He's the founder of the Greatness Network. Yes, thegreatnessnetwork.com. He's a best-selling author of Cheetahs and Zebra. Here's a question I have for you. Are you looking for a way to understand what makes you special, what makes you unique, and at the same time be agile enough to still transform and be at your very best in a changing world like we have going on right now? Well, Super Coach Michael Burt is going to share some ideas and strategies on how to be able to do that. The reason I was inspired and intrigued, I met Coach Michael as a result of Genius Network. Joe Polish, you've heard me talk a lot about Genius Network and our Genius Network event. Joe Polish and our group. And the Super Coach was a college basketball coach. And so if you know anything about me, I love sports. I love great coaches, and he is certainly one of those. And I'm just going to dive into it. Now, welcome to the show, Michael. How are you?
Hey, man, I am so thrilled to be with you, and sounds good. I'm excited. You got me excited. So
awesome.
Good.
Well, I know you've been able to help hundreds of thousands of people in all types of different industries. You've also specialized in helping agents become better at their sales and leadership. And I guess what I'd love to do to bring context for everybody that will be watching or listening to the show today, who is Super Coach? Who is Michael Burt? What do you really do?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Thank you for starting off and for having me on the show of Growth to Freedom. I believe everybody's hardwired to grow, to multiply, to expand, not to retreat and contract. I found my voice very early in life at 15 years old when I was asked to coach a junior pro basketball team in my small town of Woodbury, Tennessee. And the minute I stepped on the court and began coaching, I knew that this was what I was supposed to do for the rest of my life. So I quickly accelerated in that arena. I was coaching at 18 years old at that elementary school as a head coach. I then went on to coach at the high school level as the youngest head coach in the state of Tennessee. And by 25, I had written my first book and was really pulling business concepts over to the athletic world. And so I called it inner engineering people to win. I was really building the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit of my players, and that gave us a competitive intelligence. And I went on to be the head coach for 9 more years, win a championship, and have the most wins in the history of the school before retiring to really do what I do today, which is coach entrepreneurs, business leaders, and people that are interested in kind of multiplying their life, their money, their business, and getting clarity.
Clarity, and you are certainly great at doing that. My observation, I know we had a chance to do an interview together about a month or so ago, and I've had some follow-up. One thing that's impressed me about you, Michael, and your team, well, it is your team. Your team, they are just on it, man. They make things happen. It seems to me that you make things up, they make it real, and they are incredibly thorough, incredibly detailed, and also just incredibly responsive at what they do. And I want to get into that for a little bit, but I want to throw a little curveball here. I was listening to an interview you did here the other day with Joe Calloway, and you were talking about this wall of fame in your office, and you've got, I guess, pictures of Joe Calloway, you've got Michelangelo, a few others, and one of the names that popped out, I heard you mention, was Randy Gage. Now, why the heck is Randy Gage on your version of a wall of fame? I'm curious.
Well, when I grew, as a young speaker, I used to go to National Speakers Association events to learn the trade, and they always had these big-time speakers on the stages. And there was always something about Randy that really attracted me to him, and it was his philosophy, it was his live rich concept, it was his abundance versus scarcity. And he did a presentation once on how to be basically a person of interest in social media. And it really shaped and affected me in a way that I came back and changed their strategy. I really thought he was brutally honest, and so I came back and put different people up on my wall of fame in my training facility. And Randy was one with the big concept was just live rich.
Yes, and you know what's funny you say that is I remember I was making a transition back in it was around 2000. one of the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame speakers. His name is Michael Wickett. I had a chance to have lunch with him, and I asked him a question at that lunch. I said, if I were going to re-engineer what I was doing and look to build into the speaking and publishing business, who would be 5 people that you would recommend that I would get a chance to learn from? And number 1 on his list was Randy Gage, and number 2 on his list was Dan Kennedy from Glazer Kennedy. So, and then the other 3. So it's interesting how Randy Gage, there seems to be a cross-section of people who just find their way to Randy. I mean, he's obviously brilliant, and I think you said it very accurately, which is he is just a straight-up dude, isn't he?
Well, let me tell you the funny thing about that is at the conference that I went to early on, I didn't know who Randy Gage was, but I was sitting beside him. And when I wrote the book Person of Interest, that's kind of about how you become very attractive to the market because of the skill set you have and the energy you put out and how, you just attract people to you. And I was sitting beside this guy, and I didn't know who he was, but everybody else did. And everybody stopped and said, how you doing? And everybody wanted a piece of his time. And everybody wanted to say hi to him. And I'm like, man, I feel like a moron because I don't know who this is, but he's obviously somebody. And then I would come to find out that it was Randy Gage. But he resonated. He just projected success and prosperity, and I could feel it coming out of his pores, but I couldn't quite figure out who he was. And then later found out it was Randy Gage. So he was a really cool guy.
Yeah, and obviously made an impact on your career. So I'm curious for you, Michael, to give everybody context of what you do, how you do what you do. Again, I think there's a lot of incredible talent you have. What is your superpower that you have, or how would you define your superpower and the big outcome and the benefit that you help people achieve as a result of working with you?
Yeah, we get into a lot. Obviously, you've been coached by Dan Sullivan. I've been a strategic coach. And so when you get into that unique ability, what my real unique ability and what I've been blessed with is I am a pure coach, which means I really engage people in a set of systematic and consistent behaviors that allows them to do something tomorrow they cannot do today. And I really combine this collision of sport and business together. So I have the intensity of a championship coach to really squeeze potential out of people with the business acumen of an entrepreneur. And before we called it super coach, I used to call myself a coachepreneur because it was a blend between this championship coach who had this entrepreneurial mind. And so I can go into companies and really get more results out of the current people that they have. We've shown a lot of quantifiable evidence there by engaging them in a set of systematic behaviors that allows them to do something tomorrow they can't do today. And then I have this blend of Covey in me because I was a deep disciple of Covey for many years. So I really go to work on the whole person, the body, the skill set, the mind, the knowledge, the heart, the passion, and the spirit, the spiritual intelligence, the conscience, the need for something more important in the world. So I'm kind of combining these multiple skill sets with a little bit of Sullivan in there as well because he deeply influenced me as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I would love to carry this conversation for hours because there's just so much wisdom that you have. And, there's usually 2 distinct different types of personality in business today. One is there are the type of coach who just builds players up from the ground up, and then there are others who only recruit the best in the world. You're the rare breed that actually brings the 2 together to get the best results. And as you see great championship teams, championship team, you got to build champion people first. And it sounds like that's your approach at what you do.
Well, there's 3 types of people we coach, Dan, and I've been speaking on this a lot here at the beginning of the year. There's the person that don't know what to do. They know they have very little skill, very little knowledge, very little desire, very little confidence. Then there's a person that knows what to do, and they've done it well, but they've plateaued, and they need another person to look at their business. And then there's a person that's doing it at a mega level. I've got a $93 million mortgage producer I'm coaching, and I have to keep her from getting bored. Because, you get to a certain level, success becomes numb to you. And so all 3 of those people need coaching. They just need it in different ways.
That's right. And as it turns to coaching, Michael, you have this best-selling book and platform, Cheetahs and Zebras. Give everybody a basic context about that. And I know when we come back, we're also going to spend more time going into some more of the specific strategies, some takeaways that people can have. So Cheetahs and Zebras, what is it? How does it apply to people today?
Well, we live in a saturated and commoditized world, and so I believe there's never been a better time to look different and run faster than your competition. And the analogy is a zebra looks different than every other animal in the animal kingdom. It's very distinguishable. It's very noticeable. It stands out. A cheetah runs faster than every other animal in the animal kingdom. So that has to do with speed. It has to do with what you mentioned about my team being so responsive and so engaged with you. It has to do with, do we have a selling system and go on attack? They tell us that cheetahs have a 60% close ratio. And I'm sure many of your listeners would like to have a 60% close ratio.
Yes.
So the zebra, I didn't realize when we wrote this book how big the symbolism would be. I even wear a zebra print jacket when I speak on it. It's this red and black zebra print jacket because it looks different. And so this has to do with how you position, how you market yourself, how you articulate your explanation of services. It has to do with how you separate yourself in a very crowded space.
A very crowded space. And you know what? Are you looking for a way to position yourself that you look different, that you run faster, that you have a higher enrollment rate, or as Michael calls it, the closing ratio? And I believe in our world there are 6 categories in business and 6 categories personally that if you just improve those slightly, have the slight edge, you can get exponential results. And that's what this show is all about, bringing you transformation, inspiration, and leadership to be able to do just that. And when we come back, we're going to go more into the strategies overall. I also want to let you know we've got a special resource package for you today to be able to work with, that we're going to share at the end of the show, that you can get your hands on a couple $100, a series of tools, videos, audios, and more as well. Now, before we do that, Michael, I have a quick question. Again, I'm going to throw a little curveball here. What were you known for in high school, just out of curiosity?
Well, the funny thing is I wasn't Prince of personality. I wasn't the smartest guy in the group. I did finish in the top 10. But I was really known as a thinker, as a person that was always a little bit older than what my age was.
A little bit older than your age. That speaks a lot. I can relate to that extremely well. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can look different, run faster, build greater growth, and more. That and a whole lot more on growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com, the show bringing you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. And today we've got a special leader, the super coach, Michael Burt, and we're talking about how you can look different, run faster, get 10 times growth. And we left off talking about cheetahs and zebras. Now, Michael, with your approach to cheetahs and zebras, one of the things that I find fascinating is that it's almost a way for you to work with anybody of any background or level. And you talked about the 3 types of people, that they don't know what to do. Then there's those that are looking to make the improvement. And then number 3 is they're already mega successful. So let's start where the rubber meets the road. Let's start at the beginning. If I were just getting started right now and I wanted to, call it the encore, or I'm in transition, want to build up my future growth, what steps would you recommend someone take to be able to do just that?
Yeah, there's 4 big missing structures that I believe that first group has, that they don't know what to do. Number 1 is they don't have a very good explanation of services. And so they go out into the world and they see a lot of people and their activity may be there, but I believe having something to say is just as important as having somebody to say it to.
Yes.
So they go out and say something very commoditized. They don't have any differentials. They don't know what makes them a zebra. And Covey used to say, when 2 opinions are the same, then one is unnecessary. And so if I can get you somewhere else and get it similar and cheaper, why do I need you? And so we teach people how to articulate their explanation of services in a 6-step process. And it typically looks like this. First, tell me what you believe versus what you do. Then tell me why you believe it. Tell me what it is you really do. Tell me how you do it different than everybody else. Tell me who all you've done it for social proof and consensus, and then ask me that big question, if I could do it for you, just like I've done it for all these other people, what would stop us from getting started? That one thing alone will separate 99% of the people, because that really separates how you articulate what it is you really do. And so this is the first problem most people have, is they don't have that explanation of services, or what we call the EOS. Then they don't have a selling system is the second problem they have, Dan, is they don't have a calculated and coordinated attack in which they go out and generate leads and customers. And so we teach a selling system called legacy selling. It's 14 to 20 systematic strategies on how they go out and generate qualified leads and build their business. Third problem they have is they don't follow up with a disciplined approach. We believe in 7 to 15 touches, 80% of the time, to convert prospects to clients, to show growth. Very few people will go 7 to 15 touches. And the way they do it, we use the challenger sale, Dan, is the way we follow up with people. So we push people, we challenge people, we create tension with people. We always bring value when we go back. We never send fluff touch-ups. And then the fourth problem they have in that first group is once they do get customers, they don't produce a great experience, therefore leaving people as passives or detractors. They never get them to the advocate or promoter stage, and so they don't have any referability.
That is such great advice. Wow, I've got 2 pages of notes just on this. Is, articulating your message. You broke it down into 5 steps. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? What makes you different? Who have you done it for? And if I could do it for you, what would that be? And is there any reason why not to move forward? Second problem, they don't have a selling system. Third is they don't follow up. 7 to 15 touches, and then you use the challenger approach. And then the fourth is they don't produce a great experience. Wow, that's a lot of content to take in just a short window. I love it. So let's say I get all these things down, Michael. I mean, it's obvious why you do as well as you do. So let's say I get all these things down. What are my next steps? Let's say I'm in that second category. I'm in the middle. What is the next level for, I guess, exponential improvement?
Well, the next problem you've got, once you're pretty good at those 4 things, is you've probably had some level of success, but you're hitting a plateau. And that plateau could be called a ceiling of complexity, which Dan Sullivan refers to. And a lot of people hit this plateau. They work harder and harder, but they can't break through. I once heard, and I think this is a strategy problem. You've heard you can grow your business 2 times by working harder, but you can't grow it 10 times. So the strategy, to me, a good plastic surgeon never makes more than 2.2 millimeters of change, and they very seldom make more than 7 changes. And so I coach a lot of our people on what are the 2.2 millimeters of change for your business that are strategy changes that could, in your words, have exponential growth. And, for example, one for us in the coaching business is putting all of our programs online, or offering access for anybody in the world to buy coaching programs. And when we did that, that was a small strategy change that opened us up to the entire planet. So you can see the amount of revenue. I mean, that alone could multiply our business by 10 times, because now we can sell to anybody on planet Earth versus just selling locally or regionally. And so a lot of people, it could be a relationship that's a strategy where they get a force multiplier or a feeder system. It could be one shift in strategy. It could be introducing a new division of the company, but there's some typical strategy thing you need to do. And one more example, when I was a coach, Dan, I would get to a certain level every year. I'd win 30 games. I'd get beat at the exact same point. I'd take my toys and go home. I'd get mad at my players. I'd go, in the off season, mad and frustrated. I'd come back again the next year and do it all over again. And I was hitting that ceiling of complexity until I finally sat down with 6 coaches that had won championships, and they very clearly told me 2 strategies to change. The very next year, we won 38 out of 41 games, and we were the best team in Tennessee. That was a strategy issue, and I think that's what the plateau people have. That's their problem. It's not working harder. It's the strategy piece.
That is such great advice overall. And as you're watching or listening, I'm going to challenge you to re-listen to this episode. You can go listen to it or watch it at growthtofreedom.com/45. That's growthtofreedom.com/45. And I'd get a pen, I'd get a piece of paper, I'd lock yourself in a room and go back through this and dissect each of these pieces that Super Coach Michael is sharing with you, because there's just some great wisdom here overall. Now, I'm curious, Michael, what to you, I mean, I know Dan Sullivan's definition of selling, which is getting people emotionally engaged in a future result that is good for them, right? So they're intellectually engaged for a future result that is good for them, so that they emotionally commit to take action. And then Tony Robbins it's the transference of emotion. What is your definition of selling?
I think money only changes hands at one time, when problems are solved. And so when I really stepped back and thought of that. If money only changes hands when problems are solved, it makes selling so much easier. And now you and Joe talk about something I really love, which is selling to a want versus selling to a need. Because, people can have that need, that problem, but they won't spend money to solve it. But so I use the opportunity filter. I look for problems every day, and many times people don't know what their problems are. So a good coach has trained eyes. It's almost as if he's fishing with polarized glasses on. I can look at your business and any business and say, here are the 3 problems that they have. Many times they don't know. And I say, here's the 3 things you're fighting, and here's how I would solve that problem. Or they say very general things, like we need our sales team to perform more, or I've hit a ceiling, or I need clarity. They don't know how to articulate their true problem. But I do believe money changes hands when problems are solved. The bigger the problem, the more money you get to solve it. If Elon Musk figures out a way to get to space, that's a bigger problem. Automatic cars are bigger problems because it solves the problem of 50,000 deaths a year of people on freeways and the time and space on freeways problem. So the problem, the more money you get to solve it. And that's kind of always been my selling philosophy.
Wow, that's some great advice. And by the way, as you're watching or listening, if you're looking for more ways to be able to look different, run faster, some takeaway strategies you can put in place today, we'll be right back. More with Super Coach on growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com. Boy, howdy. We've got the Super Coach Michael Burt with us today. We've been talking about the 4 missing structures to exponential growth. We've been talking about strategy, the 2.2 millimeter change to get incredible results. And I'll tell you, listening to one of your interviews with Joe Calloway here recently, Michael, you talked about the idea that is there anything more important than spending time with either your current clients or your future prospects? Talk about that concept, because I know I believe you've been talking a lot about it over the last several weeks. Talk about that concept and the impact and the outcome that it has when people do focus on that single idea.
Well, Calloway's been a big influence in my life. Even when I was a coach, we used his book, Become a Category 1. And it had 3 green apples on the front of the book and 1 red apple to talk about how you separate yourself. And this is something I heard him say once, and I totally agree. When people start giving you excuses about how busy they are and all the things they're doing in a day, to me, this is real simple. There's a high value of your time, and there's a low value of your time. And the high value of your time should be spent in doing specific, intentional activity that is in alignment with your best customer getting or growth strategies that is moving you closer to your dominant aspiration. And so if you told me you wanted to make $1 million this year, that's $83,333 per 30 days for 12 straight months. You can't make $1 million in a day. You could, but it's highly unlikely for lots of people. But you can do something every day that moves you closer to making $83,333 per month multiplied by 12. And so a lot of people say, well, I'm so busy. And Calloway always said, what's more important in a day than spending time with your current customers or getting new customers? The purpose of any business, Peter Drucker, is to create a new customer. So I coach lots of people that spend a lot of time doing very low-value activity that is not in alignment with your best strategies. It's like a guy saying, my best strategy is face-to-face, and I say, well, pull out your calendar and show me how many face-to-face you got this week, and he's got 2 versus 25. So we're trying to align our core strategies with generating new business every day or delivering and exceeding the expectation of what we've already sold.
So such great insight. High-level activity. As you're watching or listening right now, where is your high-level activity? What is your highest use, best use of time and energy and focus versus those low-level activities? I find that a lot of people, Michael, get themselves sucked into social media, and it's, a time suck, and they're consumers of things instead of realizing the other side of the coin and being the promoter of things or the marketer of things or the producer of things, if you will. And you're really good at being able to help people flesh out what is most important. The dictionary shifted years ago, probably about 60 years ago. I was in a meeting with Joe Polish and Dan Sullivan. They talked about the idea of priority shifted to priorities here in the last, few decades, which is amazing. Priority is one main thing. So for you, I'm curious, as you're building and growing your business, as you look at 2015, heading into the next 12 months, for you, what do you see as the most important thing and things that you'll be focusing on and really looking at as your highest use, best use of time and energy?
Well, there's three things I want to do every day, and that's create better content that we can share. I want to deliver presentations that deeply impact and are transformational, and I want to make a bigger impact. That's really where I spend a lot of my time, whether it be in the 10 books we've written. I'm constantly working on new books or new concepts. We've generated very big coaching programs like Monster Producer, which has been very successful. That's a month-by-month coaching program for anybody in the world who would like to become legendary creatures that dominate a market. And so we've been culling things out that don't fit. So we do 3 or 4 things. Big entrepreneurial coaching program. We've got a big program for turning managers into coaches, which is right in my wheelhouse. And we've got a new concept called Talent Supply, which is where you either virtually or in person send us your new people, and in a 90-day cycle, we get them talent ready to come back and produce versus flounder around for a 1-year process.
That's great. I mean, you're finding a hole in the marketplace and recognize, one of the simplest exercise we talked about it on one of our recent episodes at growthtofreedom.com/44 was the idea of identifying your clients and or your market's greatest problems. Ultimately, what is your solution, right? The opportunities that exist. What are the talents that those clients have that you can integrate? And then on top of that, going to the emotional needs that they really have. Tony talks about them in 6. There's, of course, Maslow's hierarchy. Now, what I'd love to do, Michael, because, I mean, again, you just have so much wisdom. When we come back, I'd love for you to share how people can reach you. You're a big family guy. I'd love to talk about some of the rituals you integrate with your personal life and your family life that you just do every day. That and a whole lot more coming up with the super coach, Michael Burt, right after this on growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com, bringing you transformation, inspiration, and leadership. Today we've got the super coach, Michael Burt, talking about strategy, talking about the 4 missing structures to be able to get 10 times growth. We've been talking about cheetahs. We've been talking about zebras, running fast and being agile in an ever-changing world, putting yourself in a category of 1, that and a whole lot more. Now, Michael, you're a family guy. You have a lot of incredible rituals. I actually created this show for my kids, and instead of just talking about the idea of, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and, theoretical advice, I put the show together to actually show them that you can literally get to anybody you really want to if you can provide value to them first. And so this is an outlet for me to be able to do that. I was lucky enough a few weeks back to have my kids on the show, and I actually had them in studio, and we were bantering back and forth with each other with one of our guests, Rick and Liz Thompson. It was a lot of fun. And I love your approach to this too. So talk about some of the rituals that you have in place that you integrate daily or weekly that our viewers, our listeners can be able to walk away from and go, wow, that would be great for me to put in place too.
Well, there's a concept I created probably 6 months ago that I taught and was very popular. I'll eventually maybe write a book on this when I think I've mastered it. And it was called CRUMBS. And it was a strategy, 7 strategies to put in place so as not to give crumbs to your family when you get home at the end of the day. I notice a lot of people exert energy, including myself, into their work. They're passionate about it. It's their vocation. It's not their occupation. They exert enormous amounts of energy into the work only to have crumbs left over at the end of the day. So, and I was one of those people. So I began to try to put these mechanisms in place for me to use the time system appropriately, to pulse up and down during the day, to take breaks before I ended the day, to start 2 hours earlier in the morning, to get all of that stuff done so that when I did get home, the goal was to be able to have 1 high hour of impact per night with my daughter. We have a daughter that's 3 years old, and she's in that wants to play and run and play hide and seek and all those things. And if you don't put these mechanisms in place, you really exert all of your good energy with complete strangers most of the time. And then you get home and you've got nothing in the tank. So I did the crumbs to help people have a strategy throughout the day so that they could be cognizant and aware of you can conserve energy. Phil Jackson used to teach the players with the Lakers and the Bulls how to pulse up and pulse down and actually conserve energy throughout the game and only really peak up when they needed it. And so I remembered that, and I said, man, I can do that throughout the day versus just going so hard that when it's all said and done, I got nothing left in the tank.
That's such great advice. Now, what would you say are the top mistakes that, for you in your career? You've had a long journey. You were a high school coach, a college basketball coach, now as the super coach, providing this wisdom, this guidance that you do. What would you say for you has been your lowest point in your business career?
I think coming out of the gate, there's one of the biggest mistakes I've made is in hiring the wrong people.
Oh yeah.
I have really. I'm a quick start. I see the good in people. I pull the trigger very quickly without due diligence sometimes, and try to figure it out later. And I have many times misaligned myself. When you hear a person talk about core values, and they talk about trust and honesty, integrity, those are core values, but I talk about core values differently. I talk about core values as what is it at your core you really believe. So, for example, I believe everybody needs a coach in life. If I hire an employee that does not believe that, we're already out of alignment.
Yep.
If I believe in coming in early and staying late to get the job done, and I hire a person that wants to come in late and leave early, we're already out of values. If I believe in integrating my faith in my work, this morning we did a devotional on the book, The Battle Plan for Prayer, which is a 3-week devotional I'm doing as part of our coaching training that I open up to everybody in the community. It's open to the public. Well, if I hire people that don't believe in the same things I do, it's only a matter of time before we really got a problem. And I've been guilty of that. When I pull the trigger, we have a need, we're growing fast, let's go get somebody and try to make them fit. And that's really cost me a lot of time. It's cost me a lot of money, to be honest with you, because of that quick start nature of me trying to do that quick.
Hey, I can relate. I can relate all too well. I think it even goes to that, misnomer we talked about in our interview of finding a need and filling it, right, where I have re-engineered it to a degree. And it is a yes and a no, because it's, identify the want, find a want, an insatiable hunger and want first, and really get clear on what they want or in this case, what you want. Then go at it. But then what you do is look, how does it fill the emotional need? It's not the X, the solution. It's how does this X solution fill the emotional need that they're looking for, and really trying to match those up. So, that's great wisdom. Now, I'm curious, with that in mind, knowing what you know now, right, as you've built up your business over time, what would you do different and why?
Well, what I would do different is we would run different testing on them, whether it be Colby Index, whether it be DISC profiles. I always said, let's find the person that hired all these bad people and kick them in the butt, and that was always me. So I've put other mechanisms in place for other people to interview. We do group interviews. We're doing husband and wife, spouse interviews. We're getting them in multiple settings. We are now doing job and career fairs, where we put out to the public that we're hiring. We bring them in for lunch. We can watch how they socially interact with people. I can get to see them in a couple of different settings. And so we've really had to put 3 or 4 big mechanisms in place to make sure we don't go down that path again. One big mistake I made, we had a TV show around the book Zebras and Cheetahs where I coached these people. I tell people it's part Shark Tank, part Amazing Race, part Apprentice. Was how we structured the show, and if we could have just gotten the Bachelor on there, we would have figured out how to make it a bigger hit, I think. But when you think about this, what I would do is I would bring these people together. They would get all jacked up over a 2-day process. It was a TV show that was actually on TV, and then I'd end up hiring these people. And I was so impressed with them during a 2-day window, I would hire people off the show. It was a great way to test them and battle test them. Now, what it was not great for is we could get them to change for 2 days, and we could get them to change for 90 days. But at the 90-day mark, they had changed for me and not changed for them, which speaks to that emotional need that you spoke of. And so they were amping up for TV, and they were amping up for me for 90 days. But when that 90 days was up, man, they were out of gas, and they were just not the right fit.
And speaking of right fit, if you want to learn how to be a cheetah and also how to differentiate yourself as a zebra, you want to run faster, you want to be agile, I want to encourage you to reach out to Super Coach Michael Burt. Michael, how can people reach you? Where do you want them to go? What's that process?
I'd take them straight to CoachBurt.com, CoachBurt.com. They can find all of our books. They can find about me speaking at events. I'm getting ready to get on a plane and fly to Chicago to speak this afternoon. And we speak all over the country. We coach all over the country. And we have got a program for you if you're serious, if you're really serious about elevating, breaking through those ceilings. If you got one of those three problems, we would really like to spend some time with you.
And I want to encourage you, go visit Michael at CoachBurt.com. That's Coach Burt, CoachBurt.com. He's got an incredible amount of resources. You'll learn about some of his video resources. You can get a feel for what the Super Coach does. And I have a strong affinity because my sister actually went to your alma mater there at MTSU, by the way.
Yeah. Small towns, man. Small towns and big dreams. I love it.
That's exactly right. Now, speaking of which, you brought up what you were known as in high school. So when it's all said and done, when the chapter's been written on your entire life, what do you want to be known for overall?
I think my legacy is going to be that guy coached thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. I'm a pure coach. And part of my legacy now is watching my former players be successful who are now in their 30s, 40s. And they come back to me and say, they still to this day send me emails of, this is what you taught me when I played for you in high school that I've never forgot. And go on to be successful and send me an email and say, I would have never become this if it wasn't for you and the 4 years I spent with you. I mean, that just really does it for me. And now those are people that are business people that are saying, I grew my business 43% because I've got a relationship with you. And I think at the end of the day, my tombstone will just say he was a great coach.
A great coach. And speaking of being a great coach, what is the most special thing about having a 3-year-old right now and what you get to do with her, being an entrepreneur and living in what we call the growth to freedom model?
I think the best thing right now is getting home at the end of the day and that little girl running to me and saying, Daddy, and having those intimate conversations. And where she says, Daddy, are you getting on a plane to go coach? I said I was going to speak in Chicago, and I said, baby, Daddy's going to Chicago to speak for a day and a half. And she said, no, that's not right. You're going to coach, Daddy. You're a coach. You're not just a speaker. And I thought that was just so enlightening for a 3-year-old to get that.
Oh, that is so good. What is the biggest challenge of being a dad and an entrepreneur at the same time, and what have you learned from it?
It's the crumbs issue. It's I don't know how to go any other way than all out, man. I'm just engineered to just drive this thing as hard as I can. So actually practicing that concept, it's one reason I haven't written a book on it yet, because I haven't mastered it. And when I do master it, I think that'll be big. How do I conserve some juice for the end of the day? How do I have good mojo for my whole family? How do I spend good time at home and I'm not tired and exhausted or running out of batteries? And that's something I think every entrepreneur really struggles with, because the business requires them to dig in. You can't be half in and half out when you're a small business owner trying to grow big.
That is so true. And since I know that, family life is important to you, if not most important to you, and having a great marriage is important to you, what is it, Michael, that you would tell your daughter and wife today as a personal message of your gratitude for them being able to give you the support and structure to be able to do what you do as an entrepreneur, changing the world?
Well, you really hit it right there. Your partner in life has got to really understand that passion, and I'm very fortunate that Natalie understands what my mission is in life, what my vision is, and she really handles all the backstage things. And she, when I have to get on a plane and be gone for a day and a half, she supports that. And I think that's very important for that partner to always understand, that we got a song to sing and we got people to sing it too, and we can't suppress that. And it's been a very, very good fit for me, and it's just been an amazing journey to have that kind of support at home that doesn't say, well, I don't want you to go do this. I know she says, I know you got to go do this because this is what you were born to do. They asked Steven Spielberg's wife once if she would be married to Steven Spielberg if he was a ditch digger, and she said no, because he wouldn't be Steven Spielberg. What I love about that man is the way he thinks, that he's always thinking, that he's always working on something. That's what I am attracted about him, is he is in his unique ability area.
Wow, that is some great insight, and wow, thank you for sharing that, really. And by the way, Natalie, as you may be watching or listening,
yep,
thank you too for providing an incredible support structure for Michael to be who he is. Mm-hmm. As a coach,
absolutely,
as a mentor, as a leader. And Michael, I could literally spend hours and hours with you, and we would have fascinating conversation. We could get into models, sales models, business models, family life, personal life, and so much more. I'm just incredibly grateful to have you on our show today. What's something I should have asked you that I didn't?
I think a lot of people are confused about coaches. And I think coaching has become a commodity because a lot of people have woken up and called themselves a coach. And I always tell people, do you want somebody who woke up one day and called themselves a coach, or somebody that's actually won a championship, somebody that's had to get a group of people to a dominant focus? And I think people put them into buckets as well. You're a life coach or you're a motivational speaker. And there's a lot more to coaching than that. Coaching is really that engaging people in systematic and consistent behaviors. It's not a one-time thing many times. It's over the long haul to help you play at a whole new level. And many times without the great coach, you never really fully realize your potential because it's normal for you to contract and retreat.
That is so true. And I want to encourage you to go visit Michael. Go to Coach Burt, that's COACHBURT.com to learn more about him, his resources, how he can help you, build a better you, play at a new level, play a bigger game because you deserve it. Michael, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today. Thank you, my friend. I look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, man. I'm better off for you in my life. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon. And thank you for being a part of our show today. If this show has resonated with you in some way, make sure to share it with a friend. Again, you can get access to this episode at growthtofreedom.com/45. You can visit us at our main site at growthtofreedom.com. Share your comments. What questions do you have? You can hit us up on Twitter. Join the conversation at Dan_Kuschell. That's Dan_Kuschell. Email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. Info@growthtofreedom.com. We'll see you next time on growthtofreedom.com.